Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dot to Dot. Today, I'm going to continue on with the vault theory, and also I'm going to show you a connection between Zena Halpern's map and the Tree of Life. It's very interesting. So, before I do that, I'm going to put my copyright disclaimer. Anything I'm using in this presentation that is copyrighted, we are using under the Fair Use Act for these purposes. So, with that said, I will continue on with a little bit of review. If you haven't watched my last video about the discovery on Round Island, I suggest you do so. And just to give a little recap before I start here, these are the three boulders that correspond to what we discovered in the Rochefoucauld note. And this line sets up a true east-west line that is basic orientation, the number one orientation for this document. So one of the comments that I received from the last video was, why is this map always not oriented to true north? Why is it oriented this way? Well, this document that I have here as an overlay has been already oriented and scaled to all the geometric clues that we have discovered on this map. So that's why it's like this. So I guess you could say that anything that is drawn on here, if I take away the Rochefoucauld map, that is the way it is corresponding to Oak Island in real life, because it is to scale and orientation. So as you can see, this line that comes from Round Island with the lining up of these stones, which we just showed last video, creates an east-west line that basically goes directly through the center of the island, just cuts it in half. So if I had this map or this document in front of me and I didn't have access to Google Earth, which makes it very easy to do, I would just be marking these lines on a map. Now, they don't mean anything until you have a point of registry where to register these lines, at least 1 or 2 points, and also a scale. How big are these lines? And I'm going to show you how that is established today. So since we're on the subject of Round Island, we're going to go out here to Round Island on here. Now, you can see that there's these two. Olivier from Oak Island Research noticed these, and we attributed them to little teacup handles. And that's what l'Anse, and it's not really spelled in modern French correctly here. It should have no A and just an apostrophe. But l'Anse means the handle. It can also mean the cove if it was spelled correctly. Well, here I have l'Anse, cove, the handle, the loop. Now, I had here l'Anse. It just has the handle. And I had on here, I didn't go back, but when you do the synonyms of l'Hamp or l'Anse, you get hump. Now, Olivier from Oak Island Research, he's really good in French, so I don't really look at these very often. I go more by what he tells me about French. But reverso is really sort of, I don't know how reliable it is, but I find it interesting that hump came up, and that is in the translation of La Formula. And La Formula is a cipher that was uh, basically the same cipher as the 90-foot stone. And translated into French, it comes up with this translation. And here we find La Hampe. And in the conclusion, basically, of this deciphering this document, we're going to find that the main objective, one of the main objectives of this document, is to locate this quadrant on Oak Island and its position. And actually, a little bit of a spoiler alert, this is La Hampe. This location ends up being La Hampe. So I find it interesting that this says right here, the La Anse, it's synonymous to La Hampe. The east-west line goes directly to it. And our first clue was from here, this little V to the center of this. So this is very much emphasized, and it's very integral in the interpretation of this map. So back to Round Island. Here we have these two very subtle clues, just like we had before. We have a little line here coming off, and we also have this little sort of 90-degree foot thing. And if we take a line from the straight of this and we extend it down here, we get it coming to here. Now, if you look right here, we have the same similar foot that is found up on the portion of Round Island here. So this is a clue. It's not necessarily a vector, but it's a clue that this line is associated with this with the bark. And this is the bark right here. And if we take a line from the little geometric indicator here through the back of the bark, through this notch, we end up with a cross right here, an intersection right here. Now, when we see this association here with the bark and this to a center point, we understand that this can possibly be an instruction to go perpendicular from point D or cone D to the center here, which would be the headstone. But we don't know that right now if we're just drawing lines on this. But the way we would do this is we would bisect this angle and we would go perpendicular from that point. So that's how we would find the perpendicular. And this ends up being the headstone and cone D. Whether it's known or unknown, I don't know. But this is the way that Nolan's cross starts to develop through decoding this map. Now, I'll get to the tree of life here. The tree of life is right here. And if you notice that those two lines that we just used to find the axis of Nolan's cross, which this is the axis, that's the same perpendicular line. It is the center of the tree of life. So this line goes through the severity stone and the victory stone, and this harmony would be cone D. So this is cone D. and the bark, it goes through the mercy and the glory stone. So very interesting how these alignments are happening. It sort of gives us an idea of perhaps who we're dealing with as far as the architects of this. And I haven't really gone there before in any of my past presentations too much, um, but it's becoming more and more credible that the tree of life theory, which is first presented by Peter Edmondson, and he went to the island back in 2001, and he actually found this stone right here, which is the Malku stone or the Kingdom stone. And I believe he also found the Victory stone. So I know that there's a couple of boulders on Oak Island that are already established with the Tree of Life, and how they correspond to these vectors that I've shown, I don't know. But this is pretty much in line with Nolan's cross. So Nolan's cross pretty much makes the majority of the Tree of Life. Another thing, Olivier at Oak Island Research just did a video on the geometry of Michelangelo and how I think it was the the east west line, and there's a certain geometry that goes with this. That this right here, this side of the tree of life, corresponds to one of the lines. I suggest you go watch his video, Oak Island Research. I'll leave a link in the description. And this is pointing to, again, the center of Laham. So obviously, this is a very important spot in the tree of life. And I find it very interesting how this corresponds to the tree of life now. I didn't really quite think that it would, but I'm finding now that it does. So the next thing, let's take the tree of life off of here. And we know now that this, let's see, let's take this off. So we know this is bisected, and we go to the midstone, and that takes us to the headstone. And the what the headstone and the relationship between the headstone and the cone is that is the distance. It's 429 feet, or 400 pied, according to pre 1668 French units of measure. This is where the the distance here comes in. And if you know, if I show you this, has already set to 429 feet. So the scale of this map is, or this document is already set. And this is where we get the scale distance for this map. So you can see here's the crossbar of Nolan's cross. This is parallel to this cone D, this bisector that we just put here. This will come into play with when we get into the landing with these two parallel lines. These are basically what is being shown here, is these two parallel lines are these two parallel lines. But we're not going to get into that today. Cone C is right here. And cone C, and I will go back up to the Rochefoucauld map. And the last clue up here for this note is the Petite. This is an error. It should not be have an E here. And you can see that this I is in between these two T's. This is used in this. This is ETTE, just like in the petite, but it's wrong. It should just be CE. And what Olivier from Oak Island Research did is he found that this establishes this line right here, and that's called the set line. And it goes down through and intersects through cone C. The reason the lineup is right here with the T between the T and the E, and it's later verified this E gets bracketed, and this goes into the landing portion of it, but you can see how this E is bracketed from this other angle, and that is why this E right here is emphasized. So, and that gets all into the landing, which I'm not going to get into today. It takes too long. But that is it for today. And next video, we'll get more into this, which is the next clues, which is called the landing. And you can already sort of see what it's developing into is this point here is this point. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.